What's up, gang? Dead Girl here. How's everybody doing on this fine Thursday evening? I'm here with a good friend of mine, Tony Mandile of Anatomy Effects, and we're just kind of hanging out and thought we would chit-chat with you all tonight. How you doing today, Tony?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. Now, for those people that are just joining us, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you guys do over there in Anatomy Effects?
Yeah, well, we are, or I should say, Anatomy FX, is a special effects makeup and prop fabrication shop. It's evolved a lot over the years. When I first started my career back up in New Jersey, I was primarily prosthetic makeup, special effects. And since relocating down here to Orlando, we've shifted focus more to prop fabrication. So we do a lot of sculpting, molding, painting, fiberglass, silicone, all that kind of good stuff.
So, kind of a jack of all trades, if you were.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, when and how did you get into doing makeup and special effects? Is it something that you've always kind of been interested in, or was it something that you just kind of were like, I can give that a shot?
No, it was definitely something I was always interested in from a really young age. When I was really, really young, I got hooked on Star Wars right away. So I was all about the Star Wars aliens and the Cantina creatures and things like that. And then as I got older, I started discovering horror films. I think one of the earliest ones I saw was Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, it's close to my heart.
Yeah, and I want to say when I was about 14 years old, I started messing around with makeup. Just like little things, like little latex wounds on your hands and things like that. Had to wait all year for the little makeup kits to come out in the
Like when the
stores.
Halloween store is open and you were like, oh, I can get my hands on some stuff.
Right, right, yeah. There was no Spirit Halloween then, no Halloween stores. So usually there were these like little kiosks that would pop up in the malls, and they would have a couple of like Dawn Post masks and like little bottles of latex and things like that. So I started messing around with that when I was about 14 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I discovered a couple of books, a couple of library books. One was Richard Corson's Stage Makeup, which is a really old book, and another one was by a guy named Lee Bagan called Techniques of Three-Dimensional Makeup. And that's when I started learning about how to make prosthetic appliances, doing the sculptures and the gypsum molds and stuff like that. So, yeah, and then it kind of steamrolled from when I was 14 and just kept going. And I discovered Fangoria magazine and then just never looked back.
That's awesome. And Fangoria, of course, is one of my favorites and one that, I kind of grew up reading too. So I get it. And it was great because they always did a little behind the scenes. And that was something that if you're interested in makeup, that's something that you would kind of gravitate towards. Now I know that you've done it for, God, you were working at, what was it, Six Flags in New Jersey for what, like 17 years?
Yeah, Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey for 17 years. I started there in 1999. I started doing independent film in '95, and then I started at Six Flags in '99, and then I kind of juggled both for a while. Six Flags wasn't at the time I started. It wasn't a full time thing. I would just go in for the haunt season, and then I would be gone, and then have the rest of the year to do whatever. And then the longer I stayed there, like the responsibilities and the position kept getting larger and larger.
And it's a lot working, from a movie set to, working something like Fright Nights. It's a little different in respect of like your timing and how quickly you have to do things. So it's interesting to me. What are the two big differences that you would say between working on set versus working on, an actual, like let's say the haunt?
It's just like you said. It's a lot of time. I think a lot of people who want to get into this should spend a couple of seasons in haunt industry because it really it teaches you to be fast. But I mean that's the huge difference is that if you're working on a film set and you're doing one character's makeup, you've got a couple of hours to really nail that makeup and get a camera ready. Whereas working in a haunt situation, like you're just processing actors as quickly as possible. So if I were doing a prosthetic makeup, like a prosthetic, I call them bandit pieces, when it was on cheap browse or whatever. I might take an hour and a half to 2 hours to do that on film, whereas I've got to get that stuck on somebody's face and then airbrush and then kick them out the door inside like 15 minutes. So it's a huge difference time-wise. But when you're working for a haunt, you're not really going for like camera close-up ready either. So there's a lot of room for error.
Right, I totally understand that. And it sounds okay, so I've got a couple of people chiming in saying that they're getting double audio. Are you able to turn your phone down so that you can still hear me?
Let me see. I'll turn my audio down. Let's try that. How does that work?
Is that better, guys? Sorry about that.
That better? Yeah.
I can still hear you okay.
You can hear me? All right. The problem might be, as I explained this to you earlier, is that I'm in the Anatomy Effects. I'm in the warehouse, which is a 3,000 square foot shop, so there might be a little bit of echo. So does that work better for them?
Let's see here. Let me check with, I got a bunch of people watching. Cheryl, Jared, JD, Lindsay. Are you guys getting that massive echo still, or is that calmed down a little bit?
Calm down a little bit?
Hopefully?
Yes, maybe.
I don't know. Went kind of quiet in the chat, so I'm just going to assume that it's good.
I mean, if I can always pick up and relocate to the office too, so there's not that echo. You just want to have a cool backdrop.
Yeah, it sounds like they're still getting that echo effect.
So what I'm going to do, I am so sorry about this, guys. We're going to relocate real quick.
All right, he's going to try to relocate super fast to see if maybe that'll fix the echoey issue. So bear with us, guys. I'm so sorry about this. It was literally working fine like 3 minutes ago.
All right, we're going to leave the warehouse and we're going to go to the office.
Okay, let me see if there's something else that's maybe creating an issue here. Alright, so let's try this again and see if the office is a little bit better.
Okay, how does that work for you?
Is that better, guys? I know his backdrop was awesome. I got a couple of people going, the backdrop was so cool.
Backdrop was cool, but how's the audio now?
Is that any better?
Does the audio sound any better?
Let's check the chat real quick. You don't have a headset, do you?
I might. It doesn't have a mic, so no, I don't.
That's okay.
So, yeah. It's okay. Well, if I plug it in, then I won't be able to hear you. Be able to talk, right? Well, let's find out.
It's still double audio. We're gonna test something here with you guys real quick.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you good. Are you guys still getting that
How's
echo?
that?
Is that a little bit better with him with the headset in?
Yeah, how's that work, guys?
Okay, you got a little bit better, a little bit better.
I guess we should have tested this before we.
Well, that's why I went live earlier and it seemed to be okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Let me try something real quick. Give me a hot second.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how about now?
How about now, guys? Testing. Hello.
Is he still echoing?
Am I still echoing?
Better, but still a slight echo. Okay.
That's weird with the headset in, so that's not.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
So
better, perfect. Still a slight
better.
echo. Okay, so I got good. So yeah, let's keep your ears
so
in.
I'll
I'm really
keep my
sorry,
earbuds in.
you guys.
Yeah, I apologize. I set up the backdrop today, and best intentions. Well, all right. So what were we talking about?
All right, we were talking about your fun and amazing time working in New Jersey.
New Jersey was awesome. Yes.
And you did it for 17 years. That is a long time working. Did you start out working in with their haunt, or were you involved in the park in other ways?
Yeah, no, I started working with their haunt. What had happened was Fright Fest was never as big, like say, as Horror Nights is. Now it is, but it wasn't when I first started. And they had a special haunt that they built called Alice Cooper's Brutal Planet. So it was something that Coop sponsored, and he slapped his name on. So
that's awesome.
it was something they specifically built, and they wanted to bring in somebody from the outside to do the makeup for it. So it started out with just that one house. And then every year that I went back, we just kept building more and more and more. And then I think when I left, we had and Lindsay will probably correct me, something like 10 or 11 trails, maybe more. And it went from, I think my first season, it was just me doing makeup to like 30 actors to, by the time I left, we were processing over 200 people with a team of 12 artists.
I've got everybody in the chat yelling at you to go back to the warehouse, to the backdrop, and then it should be fine. So that's going to be your call. If you want to move again, that's totally up to you.
That's all right. We're going to move one more time. Now that I have the headset on,
this is Adventures with Tony, right here on Horror Happenings with the Dead Girl.
Yeah.
Lindsay said 7.
7 trails? Okay, so
7.
I was wrong.
That's a little bit of a difference, but that's okay. We'll forgive it.
Yeah, I'm old.
Now, here's a question for you. So, from the time that you started with getting, let's say, 30 actors out, how fast did you have to turn and burn those guys? And were you doing full prosthetics, or were you just doing paint on them?
The first season, when I just did Alice Cooper's Brutal Planet, we were just doing, or I was just doing airbrush makeup. So it was just paint, and it was a quick turnaround. And then every year it got a little bit more complex. But even in the end, when I left and we were processing so many people with a huge crew, we would still turn around and airbrush makeup in like 5 or 10 minutes and a prosthetic makeup in like maybe 15 or 20. So it's quick. Yeah. It was real quick still. So I was running and gunning.
Yeah, the haunt life is a very fun thing. I got to experience that a couple of times with JD when we worked Trail of Terror down at the Brevard Zoo here in Florida, and that was a little nuts. I got to see all that, and the second year I got to help. So that was that's an interesting amount of pressure that you go through for a quick time.
Oh, yeah. It's fun, It's a lot of pressure when you're doing it. When you have that big rush of like all the actors working and all the makeup artists working, and it's a huge madhouse to when you actually get all the actors out on the streets and in their houses and stuff, and then you can actually like take a breath and process everything that you did that night, and then if you're lucky, like actually go out and see some of your work and see the way guests are reacting to your work, and that's really rewarding too. From going from the film industry to the haunt industry, is it's immediate gratification for you as an artist to be able to do a makeup on an actor and then go out and just sort of like stand back and watch the guest's reaction to it right away. So it's an immediate gratification there.
It's a lot of fun. So I mean, you must have really enjoyed it to be there for 17 years, starting from 30 actors going up to 200. How many makeup people did you have to bring in to help you to get that many people out a
night? Again, Lindsay might correct me, but I think it was 10 or 11, or somewhere between 10 to 12 people that we built up over the course of years. Originally it was just me, and then subsequent years, I think I had 2 other people, so there were 3 of us, and then it got up to 5, and then, the more houses that we added, or the trails that we added, and then the more actors that we added, and then we just had to keep building up the makeup staff. So
that's awesome. So I got to ask, and I know you haven't been there for a couple of years. Do you miss it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I could keep up that pace anymore, but yeah, I definitely miss being sort of like in the trenches and in that rush moment. A lot of the people that work with me will tell you that I'm not the most pleasant person to work with because there was so much to keep organized and just kind of keep the ball rolling. But it's a lot of pressure,
and it's very fast paced. So you can't always be the nicest person at that point in time,
right,
because you're trying to get that job done. You're trying to get your actors in makeup, out the door, ready to roll. The park's going to open at whatever the time is. So you don't have time to play around and make nice. I totally get that.
Right, yeah.
So
it was a good time.
Good. Well, I'm sure. Now, okay, so that's going to actually segue into my next question now. Have you thought about going back to it maybe with Horror Nights?
No, not really. I kind of did my time up in New Jersey, and yeah, and as you know, I do work for Universal Creative now, and the position that I'm involved in with Universal Creative, not to knock down anybody who does makeup for Horror Nights, but it would almost be kind of like at this point in my career, step back.
Gotcha.
To do it financially, it would be a step back. But everybody out there does a great job now. So I'll just let the younger kids do it.
Let them stress it. Let them worry about it.
Yeah.
You just go and kind of enjoy the scenic and to take that all in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I can go enjoy it as a guest.
Yes. Now, okay, so you did come down here. What made you move from New Jersey down to Florida? Was it the weather?
100%. Yeah, it was my wife. It was my wife's decision, actually. It was the weather. My wife got tired of the winters up in New Jersey, and she basically just said,
We're doing
"We're
it.
moving to Florida." Yeah, yeah. So we came down. I came down with no plan. Um, leaving a career up there and then coming down here, and I had a reputation that I built up in New Jersey for almost 20 years, and I was pulling up stakes and coming down to Orlando where nobody knew me and I had no reputation, and I just had to start all over again from the ground up. So
And it's not an easy
it
thing to
was it
do.
was terrifying. No, definitely not. Definitely not. It was terrifying, but I met a lot of good people, and I was in the right place at the right time, and luckily things worked out the way they did.
Yes, 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 you did. I remember JD was
Yeah.
showing me your work right before you moved down, I think, and he's like, "This guy's moving down," and I was like, "Wow, it's some really awesome work." And he's like, "Yeah, he's coming to Spooky and he's gonna do a booth," and I was like, "Awesome." So then we actually got to meet you and hang out a little bit and got to know you through that realm of things, and I'm definitely glad that you made the jump, like most of us have from up north down
Thank
to
you.
Florida.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, let's see here. Where are we at now? When you were okay, so you do convention makeup. I know you've done makeup up
Mm-hmm.
in Jersey at Monster Mania.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that something that you would like to do again, or is that something that you're kind of like you'd rather just go kind of hang out and have a good time as opposed to have to stress and worry about doing any type of makeups or anything like that?
I would love to do makeup again at a con because I started my career as a makeup artist, and that's what I thought I was going to be. Like all of us who get into the business, we get into the business thinking we're going to be the next Rick Baker or the next Steve Johnson, and I got into the business to be on set and do creature makeup. So ending up as mainly a specialty props guy was sort of an evolution, and not where when I was 20 years younger I thought my career would go. So I would like to still keep my hands in doing makeup. If not, doing film again someday, then I at least get that creative outlet going to a convention and being able to do a prosthetic makeup demo. And again, it's that instant gratification that I was talking about with doing the haunts. Is I can do a makeup, and then I can, you've seen, walk around spooky with that model in makeup and see people's reactions to it right away.
Yes, which is awesome. And I do have some pictures that we're going to go through here in a few minutes of some of your makeups that I would love,
Mm-hmm.
for you to elaborate on a little bit more with us. And
Sure.
I know you've mentioned also that you've done some film work. I
Mm-hmm.
know we did a showing of Club Dread a few weeks ago, and you did some makeup on that. You've
Mm-hmm.
also done some other films as well. What's your favorite makeup from any of the films that you've worked on?
My favorite film makeup would be, I can't even remember what year it was. I want to say maybe 1998. I'm probably botching that. I did a student film. A lot of the work that I did, if it wasn't indie features, it was because of where I was located in New Jersey. I got a lot of people from NYU and from Columbia University
Okay.
that would contact me for their thesis films. And this particular one was an NYU film, and it was called The Man Who Wasn't, and it was very Kafka-esque. It was about a guy who just like this really ugly on the inside, New York businessman, financial district kind of guy, and he started developing these weird pustules all over his body, and eventually he ended up his whole head and body ended up completely deforming to look like he had Proteus syndrome,
Oh,
which is what Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man,
oh
had. So
wow.
I ended up having to sculpt this huge overlapping prosthetic makeup that was multiple pieces and 4 inches thick of foam latex in some
Oh
areas,
wow.
to just completely distort his head. And I put him in that makeup for a couple of consecutive days, and I think at the time it was the first time I'd done overlapping prosthetic pieces, and it was really challenging, but it's still creatively like fulfilling. Like I look at the makeup now and I, so many years later, and I see what I would do differently. But at the time where my skill level was at, I'm like, all right, that's still a pretty good makeup.
Yeah. And like most artists that I know, and you do it too, I notice. All of you artists do this. You all
Mm-hmm.
kind of, you're your own worst critics. So I could be like, wow, that's amazing. And you're like, yeah, but look at that seam right there and that line right there. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
even notice it. And I know your average Joe wouldn't notice it, but because it's your creation, you notice it and
Right.
you tend to focus on that. But I think like everything that I've seen you do has been absolutely just amazing. And I am,
We're all insecure, every single one of us. We all need a lot of coddling.
and that's okay. Writers
Yeah.
need it, artists need it, all of the creative types kind of
Mm-hmm.
need that, and I think that that's definitely okay. I got JD chiming in on the chat, and I'm gonna go ahead and echo this statement. So since you enjoy doing con makeup, we're gonna have to get you back to spooky. You know that, right?
We're gonna try. Yeah, I know. We're gonna try. We'll see. We'll, keep our eyes on August. What's happening? Yeah, I canceled my. I was supposed to. I was. Yeah, fingers. I was supposed to go up to Monster Mania in August in New Jersey, but I canceled that trip recently because I just didn't think travel was going to be
Yeah.
feasible. With the, things being what they are with the COVID. So, hopefully, Spooky goes off without a hitch, and then, we can pull something together.
Definitely. I'm writing it down. I'm making a note. I'm time stamping it. So when I call you up later,
Right.
I'm like, hey Tony, remember that time at like
Remember when you
8:24
said in the
PM?
interview? Yeah. Yeah. You have it documented.
I'm just teasing. While we're at it, let's take a look at some of the fun stuff that you've done here. Now these are two of my personal favorites. I've got your, let's see here. Oops, let me fix this. I've got your female Cenobite.
Yep.
And then I have, is that your Julie?
Yeah, that was my sort of, we'll call it an homage to Julie. It wasn't exactly Julie, but it was pretty close, from Return of the Living Dead 3. And I believe the Julie was the first makeup I did at Spooky Empire when I first moved down here.
She was.
She was, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's Julie, like the glass in the face is all very specifically Julie from Return of the Living Dead 3, but the skinned neck is my own thing. And I don't think I gave you a picture of her legs, but for anybody who hasn't seen it, her thighs are completely skinned as well, and she's got like garters clipping to the skin, I think just above her knee, so it sort of looks like the garters are holding up what flesh is left on her leg. So it was my own take on Julie. So,
Now,
but that was my first Spooky. Yes.
For something like her, how long did that take to do the Julie makeup?
To apply it?
Yes.
If I'm doing a con, I usually try and keep it inside 2 hours. So I'm going to say it was inside 2 hours. Okay. That was a couple of years ago now. That had to be 5 years ago at this point.
Oh my gosh, I think you're right. I think it's been. And then we have your female Cenobite.
She was there. Yeah, she was also supposed to be a spooky makeup. I was a full body suit, but that was the spooky. I think what hurricane was that? Irma.
Matthew.
That was Matthew. All right, it was one hurricane that kind of botched up Spooky, and we ended up doing it at
Gods and Monsters.
They ended up doing Gods and Monsters. Yeah. So I ended up doing the makeup there, but that was very elaborate because it was not only a full prosthetic makeup over her entire head, so her hair is under the bald cap, and then she's got foam latex prosthetics covering her entire head. But then I had to get her into that foam latex suit and get it zipped up, and there's a piece on the back that's called a blender piece. When you do foam latex suits like that, you've always got to hide the zippers or the snaps, so you make essentially little prosthetics to glue down over the zipper or the snaps. So you're hiding all that stuff. So that one was pretty elaborate. And she took it like a champ because it was hot in there, and she's completely encased. Yeah, it was hot in that store, and she was completely encased in foam latex and spandex and vinyl and.
She rocked it for a while.
She did. Yeah. She did a good job. I think I used her. I was Chelsea. And I think I used her twice. Three times.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we had the Julie. We had the female Cenobite, which were both awesome. Let me see here. What else do I got? Give me me 1 second. Let me check and see the
Sure.
second one. All right,
Okay.
now I've got
Was
two more up.
you
I've
pulling up
got
all the
your.
Spooky Empire greatest hits? Yeah.
It kind of is ended up being. I
All the
apologize. I've got some that aren't Spooky Empire, I promised.
Okay.
So I've
Yeah.
got your Female Darkness, and then I have
Mm-hmm.
your. Oh God, I can never say the name. Thank
Shuna
you.
Sassy from Nightbreed. Yeah. So yeah, Shuna Sassy was the first of these two that I did on Renee, and that involved a full body casting and a full head casting. She's wearing foam latex pieces that cover her entire face and the entire back of her head, and then she's wearing a full foam latex piece on her chest and stomach and a full foam latex piece on her back. So she was walking around the convention what looks like topless, but she was actually very covered because she was encased in foam rubber. And all those quills, for anybody who hasn't seen Nightbreed, which, if first of all, if you haven't, you should.
Yes, get on
And,
that
se- and,
right now.
and second, this character, Shuna Sassy, she's covered in these like porcupine quills that she can shoot out at people. And I believe it was somewhere in the number of like 200-ish feathers that I bought from like Michael's, and I shaved them all down to just the veins, and then painted them all black, and then individually glued them into the prosthetic pieces.
Those
So
are
and then
amazing. That had to be painstakingly too to sit and to do all those individual like that.
it was, yeah, and you try, and I approach this like if I were approaching to bring it to a film set. You want to try and do as much advance work as possible to cut down on your application time. So all the pieces were pre-painted where they could be pre-painted, and then all the quills were glued in advance, because you don't want to sit there with the actor in the chair and have to individually glue in 200 quills.
It's gonna take you like 10 hours to do, and it's just if it's a convention, it's not that kind of time.
Right. And then the Lady Darkness too. She's infamous now at this point, just because I think just because of the size of it. So this, again, my take on Darkness from Legend, which is an iconic character, and I just wanted to do my own version of it. So here, her horns are A, much larger than the ones Tim Curry wore in Legend, but B, and a lot of people have commented on this, they're going more straight up, whereas Tim Curry's kind of went out
to the side a little bit.
to the front, and I always have to explain the headgear that Tim Curry wore for his horns. His horns were attached to a fiberglass skull cap, which was also attached to a like a support rod that ran down the back of his makeup and down his back, and buckled around him. So all of that weight leaning forward was offset by a harness around his body, and I didn't have that luxury here. So I had to offset the weight by angling them up more, because they're very lightweight foam that just kind of keyed into little pegs in her skull cap that she had underneath that prosthetic makeup.
Oh God, and she wore that thing like she was partying in that thing. She was hanging out.
Yeah.
Well, after the convention was over, in that out by
yeah.
the pool, she was a trooper.
Yeah, she wore that for 12 hours that day.
Oh Jesus! Yeah,
She
and that's amazing.
Yeah, it's longer than anybody would be expected to wear it on a film set.
Good for her and good for you. They're both like again, truly amazing pieces. Very very unique. Not something that I've seen at a convention ever personally.
Well, now I have to top it if I come back.
Yes,
Yeah.
you will. Those are both fantastic pieces, and again, some of my truly favorite things that you've got. Now,
Thank you.
I've got a couple of other ones, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't think these are spooky. I don't think they are. If they are, then apparently it's a greatest hits, and I apologize. So let me
No, that's
pull
fine.
up our next ones. All right, so these are definitely not spooky ones.
No, so the one with all the boils and the pustules is a Fright Fest makeup. That's an example of a quick prosthetic makeup from Six Flags, and that's just a stock foam latex piece of some pustules, and we put on some glue and we smack it on their face, and then we airbrush some color on them, and I think here I can't tell, but I think we used a lot of like KY jelly, probably tinted a little bit yellow to make it look like pus. So that's an example of like a quick 15-minute makeup for Fright Fest. And then the one with the girl peeling her chest open was something I used as an Anatomy FX logo for a while before I switched over to the one that everybody sees now with the Masquerade.
Yes.
And I've always been very big, and the reason I named the company Anatomy FX is I've always been big on, whenever possible, trying to make things as anatomically correct as possible. So, and I think a lot of that comes from the Hellraiser films, like the muscle suits that Image Animation did for the original 2 Hellraiser films are just still mind blowing. So those are overlapping prosthetic pieces. What I did was I did a mold of her torso, and I sculpted the muscle pieces as a prosthetic. And then I did a second mold of that sculpture, and then sculpted, you can't see it because she's holding it open, but basically sculpted a completely intact, skin and breast, so it would fit over the muscle perfectly. And then when I made the prosthetic pieces, I glued down the muscle first, painted it all, and then glued on those flaps. So when she closed them, which I didn't have an image of that to send you, it all seamed up perfectly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And kudos, I mean, she wouldn't be seeing this, but I mean, kudos to the photographer who shot that. She's a New Jersey-based photographer. She does a lot of work with Philly models. Her name's J. Isabel DeLille. So she shot a couple of my makeups back in this era, whenever this was, and she just always killed it. Her lighting and her editing is always superb. So she makes me look good.
Oh, please. All right, listen. Let's be real about this. You don't need anyone to make you look good. Your work alone speaks for itself, and I mean,
Thank
all
you.
of your work is truly amazing and beautiful, and it's fun to watch you apply it. It's fun to watch you in your element creating. And I know recently with the whole COVID-19 thing and everybody kind of working from home, and you in your shop, I know you've been doing a lot of sculpting there, and you've created some friends that I see in the background.
Yeah, these guys are just an example of some of the things I've been doing during COVID, because I have a lot of free time on my hands. I'm only right now. I'm only really working about a quarter of the time that I would normally be working, with all the theme parks being closed up. So these guys have been a return to sort of my roots. They're all sculpted in a water-based clay called wed clay, and they're all molded a really old-fashioned way using ultracal, like heavy gypsum stones, and it's the kind of stuff that I started working with years and years and years ago, and it used to be the standard for molding and casting for prosthetics or for masks or things like that. So it's been fun to go back and sculpt whatever the heck I want to, and mold it in the way that I originally learned how to mold things in gypsum products. And then casting them just in latex too, not casting them in silicone, not casting them in any really expensive materials, just good old-fashioned mask latex. So if you were to be in the presence of these guys right now, just smelling them, it's like smelling a latex mask. It's like walking into one of those Halloween stores, and it's just got a certain odor, and it smells
It's that familiar
reminiscent
scent
of
like,
Halloween.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, so these guys have just been time fillers, and they've been great, and it's great to get back to that and just sculpting things that I enjoy sculpting, not things that other people are paying me to sculpt.
Right. I got it. Now, are you still able to do some work while you're? I don't want to talk about what you're doing because I know you can't.
Right.
So, are you still able to
Yes.
do work for other companies while you're at home or in the shop most of the time, as well as do your own thing?
Yeah, I can do. Right now, I'm doing some work for. I won't say which of the parks. I'm doing work for one of the parks, but only a fraction of what I would normally be doing. Everybody's sort of either furloughed or working on reduced hours, and then the other park. There's only really two big ones. It's only really two big ones. A lot of those contracts are on hold until things return to some kind of normalcy, which hopefully is sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I know like one of the parks is
Yeah.
reopening up soon. So, are you going to be able to go back to work once they reopen, or are you still kind of waiting for them to say, okay, come back in?
Still kind of waiting. We're all on a holding pattern right now. But there's a few things I can do. And again, we discussed this prior that I'm bound by NDAs for everything.
Which I understand and I respect. That's why I'm not prying.
Yeah.
I was just curious if you were
Yeah.
actually still able to do some stuff for them, or if you were just completely, doing everything on for you right now.
No, I am still able to do some theme
Okay,
park
good.
work, but only a fraction of what I would normally be doing.
Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah.
Now I know back to the guys behind you. I know the guy in the
Hmm.
red is an actual mask. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm trying to get out of the way. Yeah, he's an actual wearable mask. When I finish with him, he's just going to be a display piece, which is why he has that flicker light in him right now. But I can cast up other copies of him to be a wearable mask, and he's not done yet. I'm going to cut little pieces of black rubber and glue them all over, so the orange flickers are only in certain cracks, so he sort of looks like a lava bed.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what he'll look like when he's finished, and then he still needs a name, and then my tree guy over here still needs a name. I'm trying to name them all. You know.
I love the tree guy. I love
Thank you.
your little. Okay, so the one in the back, it's very witch-like.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to do a. Where is she? It's
Where's that?
the mirror image is reversed on the screen. Yeah, I love traditional witches. Like traditional pointy
One
nose and
tooth.
wart. Yes, exactly. I love that look, that Wicked Witch look. So I wanted to do something that was like that. And again, too, it's talk about like the character makeups and the things that inspired me when I was younger, and going back to Legend. Meg Mucklebones is
Yes.
another one of the brilliant makeups from that film, the Swamp Witch, and Robert Picardo just killed it in that makeup, that character. So I love that. I love that like traditional Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have a good traditional witch.
Oh, she's phenomenal. I love her. And I know you
Thank
did
you.
a fairy who I don't see in the background, so I'm assuming she's off somewhere doing her own
She's
thing.
off to the yeah. She's off to the side doing her own thing. I'm working in a limited amount of space here, so I just kind of picked a few guys to join me for this.
No, I love them.
But
Now, you've been doing most of them on your personal Facebook page, so people can go on and they can watch you sculpt um, from
yes.
start to finish, which I think is a fantastic idea. I love sitting and watching and just kind of seeing that process. On your time frames, do you recall how long it took you to sculpt, all of them out? Were they all? I'm assuming they were all different because obviously they're all different sizes and details.
They're all different, but because of the medium that I'm sculpting them in, it's a soft clay. It's a water-based clay. It goes very quickly. So I would be surprised if I spent more than like maybe 16 or 20 hours of actual sculpting on any of them, because it's just such a quick
You're
process.
ridiculous.
Um, yeah. Thank
That would
you.
take me like 3 years to do, and even then, I may get a chin out of one of them, just
Right.
because I
Well, when
don't.
you're working with that type of clay, you're in a time crunch because it does dry out unless you keep going back and
Putting it.
wetting it out. So yeah, it's another thing that kind of teaches you to be quick.
I got a
So,
couple of name suggestions for your guys. Matt suggesting Herald of the Wood for the little tree man.
okay.
I like that one. He's cool. A couple of people are saying yes, you're ridiculously fast with your sculpting, and you are. I've seen you crank some things out, and I'm just like, good
Hmm.
God.
But when I did the little goblin again, he's not in here with me. I specifically said that I was going to do him start to finish live on Facebook in one day, and I did. I got him cranked out in like maybe 8 or 10 hours, just to see if I could do it. And I do enjoy doing those live feeds of the sculpting, and I would like to continue doing more of that. And something I throw the name Lindsay out a lot, and people who are watching probably don't know who she is. Lindsay is somebody that I work with often. She worked in New Jersey with me, and then she came down here to Orlando a little over a year ago, and we still work together. We had talked about the idea of doing drunk sculpting, like drunk
Yes,
history.
it needs to be a thing.
Yeah, like yes, like drunk history, where we would just live stream all day, and we would pick a subject that day, and then we would just continue to drink, and we would each sculpt our own versions of it and see how it turned out. So,
That would be fun.
if any, would anybody be interested in watching drunk sculpting?
Yes, give me. I would definitely
Yeah,
be interested, and I love Lindsay. She's a really really lovely girl, and she does some amazing work,
yes, she
as
does.
well. And I've got a couple people chiming in how fast you are. It's ridiculous. You're the fastest people have ever seen, which is awesome, and it's amazing. And if you haven't seen Tony Sculpt, definitely follow him on social media. I know you're on Instagram, right? Anatomy FX.
I'm on Instagram, yeah, Anatomy FX, and Facebook, just Tony Mandile. I have an Anatomy FX Facebook, but I almost never look
You
at it
should.
anymore.
You should get on
I
there and do
know,
your
I
live
know.
sculpts from there. This way, people that aren't your friends can see the amazing creatures like our tree man and our skull guy and our witch back there
Hmm.
that you're creating. Just saying, just throwing that out there.
I know, I know.
But definitely give Tony a follow on Anatomy Effects to take a peek at all
Hmm.
the things that he's done. You've been posting a lot of really cool throwback pictures lately
Yeah,
too with some of the older
it's
stuff.
funny. Yeah, I have to kind of dig out some older stuff just to kind of keep the social media ball rolling, because most of what I do uh, can never be made public. So, and again, it's the nature of working for the theme parks down here. So I have friends in New Jersey who are don't see me post anything for a long time, and they're like, "Aren't you working?" Like, I work all the time.
But you
I
can't.
just
I
can't
can't tell you about
show
it.
any of it, right? So if I don't have any new sculptures to work on, then I'll kind of dig back into the archives, and I'll dig up some of the older makeup pictures that people haven't seen in a while, and I'll repost them, and it's fun for me to revisit too.
See, that's awesome. And then, and
Yeah.
not to say like, the obviously the whole COVID thing and everybody stuck at home has been horrible, but for someone like you, it actually gave you that time to work on something of your own creation instead of something for somebody else.
Right. Yeah, it has, and I've been trying to crank out as much as I can because who knows when things are going to return to normal and we'll have to return to a regular 40-hour work
And
week.
we'll never see you
So
again.
right. Yeah. So I'm trying to do as much of my own, trying to get out as much of my own creative expression as I can while I have the time to do it. And I've actually had a couple of people say that I'm trying to I'm motivating them because they all have their own creative projects that they want to work on, but it's just hard for them to get the motivation to do it. And then they'll see like that I can turn around a sculpture in like 16 hours and 2 days later have the mold made and have my first latex casting pulled. So they're looking at like all these fantasy creatures that I've made in the span of like 8 or 9 weeks, and they're like, God, they're like, you've done all this just while we've been on quarantine. I've got to like get cracking on some of my own personal projects. And yeah, man, you do.
So it's great motivation for other artists who
Yeah.
just.
Yeah. I like to stay busy.
Oh yeah, and I've got a couple people in there chiming in. If you do drunk sculpting, they'll donate some money for Uber Eats to feed you guys while you're doing that. I
Nice.
think they deliver alcohol too, so I mean, beer run through Uber for you could be a thing, I guess. I
Fantastic.
think that would
Now,
be.
if Lindsay's still listening, I have to remind her that it's a thing. We should do
Oh,
it.
she is. She says that she
Yeah.
she says love you people. Yeah, that's definitely something I think would be fun to do, or even pick something, you guys go at it and get hammered, and I think it would be
Hmm.
highly entertaining for the Facebook crowd for sure.
Definitely.
And I mean, I know you're working on a couple of other things right now for
Hmm.
you as well as the parks. Is there anything that you're working on that you can talk about?
Theme park wise,
No, just in general.
I mean, people. If any of the people that are watching are the ones that already follow me on Facebook, then they probably saw me post pictures of my baby Yoda today.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna keep him a secret at least until the mold was done, but I was so happy with the sculpture,
Oh, he's
and I
gorgeous.
was starting the mold today. Thank you. So I kind of broke my own rule. I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to keeping personal secrets. I can keep theme park secrets, but when it comes to keeping my own stuff, I get so excited about the thing that I'm working on. I just want to show it off
And he's
right away.
he's so pretty. You posted him on he's on your Instagram too, right?
He's on my
Okay.
Instagram and on my Facebook.
So
Yeah,
if you're not friends with Tony on Facebook, go to his Instagram and check it out. His in progress shot of Baby Yoda there is friggin' amazing. I know
thank
we've
you.
got some people down in the chat. I know Matt's working on his own version of it too,
Hmm.
which is awesome. He's still working on that, and he's just like, Jesus, Tony.
There's so many people who've done their own version of it now, and none of them look alike. And that's the thing too, as an artist, and I'm sure everybody who sculpted their own version is they're automatically comparing it to somebody else's they've already seen. I work with a guy who sculpted his own version too, and I look at mine and I'm like, but it doesn't look like his. But it's all our own interpretations of it, and we all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and we're all talented in one way or another. So, I have to step back and be like, but I still did it,
Yeah.
you know, and I think everybody should be that way. You know, don't compare yours
To someone else.
to someone else's. Yeah, everybody are doing their own Baby Yodas now. Grant Imahara, who used to be on Mythbusters, did his own, and it's fully animatronic, and the movement on it is beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. But you know, nobody should compare. You know, if you're a hobbyist or a professional or whatever, like nobody should compare what they're working on to something somebody else has done.
Right.
You know, just enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, I've got a couple of other people chiming in that they're working on one too. I know Wayne's working on one. Wayne's doing some really cool stuff. I know Matt's working on one. Obviously, you know, yourself, a few other people on my friends list, and you guys are all talented in your own right, and it doesn't matter if you can get it done in a couple of hours or a couple of days or a couple of weeks. You guys are all amazing, and you guys have got talent that I don't even have in my pinky finger. So, you know, just good job, everybody. Got Cheryl chiming in. Her talent is buying other people's art. Me too. I totally agree there. Now you've done some amazing things. So a couple of questions that I wanted to touch on as well is now I know you do work for both of the bigger or well-known named parks. How did that happen?
Coming down here and getting involved in the parks in such a short period of time was it was a stroke of luck, and it was just, you know, knowing the right people. When I moved down here, I didn't know anybody, and I was basically having to rebuild a career from scratch. So I was going to there's this great Orlando group called Slice Creative Network, and anybody who's a freelance artist should really look into it, because it's a network of artists that's dedicated to connecting artists with people who are hiring. So they do these like socials and these meet and greets periodically, where you as a freelancer go to a bar or a restaurant or whatever. So, and they invite industry professionals from Universal, Disney, Ripley's, SeaWorld, anybody who's hiring, and you get to network in a really stress-free kind of social environment where there's drinks involved. So you get to meet a lot of great people that way. It's called Slice Creative Network. But I years and years ago, I'd worked with a guy up at Six Flags in New Jersey who came in as part of an outside company for an electric parade we were doing. I think it was called the Glow in the Park Parade or something like that. So I met this guy and I became friends with him. Fast forward years later, and he came down here and he was an Imagineer first. And then he left Imagineering and he went over to Universal Creative for a brief time. And then he left Universal Creative and went over to Imagineering. So he's just a guy who knows everybody in town. And when I came down here, he introduced me to some of the right people in both Universal Creative and Disney Imagineering. So I had that sort of bridge, somebody that I worked with who knew me and knew what I was capable of, introducing me to like some of the more important players in town. So I was lucky in that regard to be able to meet those people and get my portfolio into the right hands.
That's awesome. That's fantastic, and that's some good information too. I know there are a lot of up and coming artists that are, you know, trying to get their feet wet. They want to know how to get into, you know, whether it's certain companies or where to even start as far as makeup goes. So if you had a budding artist who came up to you today and said, "Hey Tony, I want to do makeup, you know, what should I do? What should I look into first? Should I read some books? Should I grab some material? What's the best start that I could get?"
The best start, and it's a little bit hypocritical for me to say because I didn't go to school for makeup. You know, when I started, there really were no schools for it. All the schools kind of came up later, so it was a lot of trial and error and you know, just, you know, gleaning what materials you could from books. But I mean, nowadays you really need at least a base education. There are a couple of schools that I would recommend and a couple of schools I wouldn't recommend. But you definitely want to go at least get some sort of education, especially if they want to do makeup, because it's not enough. There are some people who, you know, just want to kind of like sling around blood and guts, and that's fine. But if you want to do like more character-based makeups or fantasy makeups or you know, glamour things, you really have to have like a basis in that, and a basis in aesthetics and hygiene and set etiquette and like all things that are really important before you are responsible for somebody else's health and well-being. So if somebody is coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I have an interest in special effects makeup, but I've never done it before. How do I start?" I would say you definitely really need to look into one of the schools first, because it's good to have that basis for it. And when an actor sits in your chair, their safety, their health, their well-being is your responsibility. So you really want to make sure that you know what you're doing and you're taking care of that person.
And it's funny too that you say that, because that when I first started assisting JD with doing some of the stuff that he does with makeup, that was the first thing he said to me. He's like, I don't care who that person is, the minute their butt hits that chair, their safety, their well-being, everything, that's your concern. You want to make sure that A, they're comfortable, that B, there's, you're not putting anything on them that you can't take off. You want to make sure that you're testing your material, so that if somebody's like, I don't have any allergies, and then, you do a quick test strip, and lo and behold, guess what, honey, you got an allergic reaction to this, so that's not going to be a good thing. So, I mean, he went over all that stuff, and most people don't really think about that.
Right, yeah. Until it becomes a situation.
Yeah. Which you never want to have, ever. But sometimes things happen, unfortunately, but that's something that you always want to be mindful of, because, you want to keep everybody's safety, of course, is your top priority. So it's I love that you brought that up, because it's something that isn't as focused on as I think should be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people don't realize it, like I said, until it becomes a situation. If you're doing it with no education, if you're just watching YouTube videos and then, going and, gluing a half a Coke can to your friend's forehead, and then something happens, you're not prepared for it.
Or, straws up your nose to do a head cast while you're laying down. Just saying.
Yeah, we've all seen this.
There's the right way and the wrong way, and you want to look for the right way. So, I mean, yes, schooling is definitely good, and even finding a mentor that has the time, that can help you, has been a great thing.
Yes.
So that's also something that's really good. I've got a lot of people chiming in the chat, saying, of course, how amazing you are, which, yes, and also saying that you're fantastic. You're always willing to answer questions and to help anybody, which I think is fantastic. You always give great feedback.
I try. It might take me a while to get back to everybody, but I do try.
Well, you're a busy man. It's not like you're just sitting on your hands doing nothing. You got things going on, and we understand that. But I think it's great that you do take that time to get back to people if they do have questions, or if maybe they're working on something similar to what you're doing. It's nice that you're willing to balance those ideas, back and forth with anybody, really. So just thank you for that. I think that's amazing.
My pleasure. Yeah. I wish I had somebody. I wish I had a mentor when I was first getting into the industry and when I was first, practicing. So I like to try and pay it forward as much as I can. And it's also gratifying when, you hear back from people who you might have, helped them get their career going, to have them remember that and say, I'm where I am because of the help that you gave me. And for me, it's gratifying to find those people who I think are worth investing my time in, and I always want to see them go farther and do more than what I've done. So there's no competition there. If I see value in somebody and I see talent in somebody and their drive to want to actually do the work, then I want to do what I can to propel them farther than where I've gone in my career. That's gratifying.
And that's wonderful. And again, there's people chiming in the chat how much they appreciate it. They appreciate you and your time and everything like that. And it's very awesome. Let's see here. Oh, so all right. So now let's play a little game of, does anybody have any questions for Tony? Well, we're just kind of hanging out. Is there anything that you guys would like to pick out of his brain that he can talk about? Of course, keep in mind that the two big things are off the table. I got somebody else chiming in, Lisa Smith. She's learned tons from Tony. She's very grateful for your guidance, your help. Hey, you're a pretty good guy.
Thank you.
We like you.
I try.
We do enjoy you. We enjoy you as an artist. We enjoy you as a person. Great things. I can't wait to see the next thing that you come up with. I can't wait to see your Baby Yoda when that thing is done.
Yeah, he's gonna be tough because he's gonna be fully articulated. he's gonna have eye blinks, ear wiggles, his mouth will open and close, and his head will turn.
And I'm
Hopefully,
assuming you're gonna do
yeah.
the sound with it, the little coos and stuff too.
No, I didn't. I didn't plan on packing any
Okay.
audio into him. This is the first time I'm doing such an intricate cable controlled thing, so this is kind of new ground for me. I was never an animatronics person or a puppeteering
You are
person,
now.
so this is an exercise for me to see if I can do it.
You'll crush it. We got faith in you. All right, I do have a question. From JD's asking, do you have a desire to create any other Nightbreed characters?
Absolutely. I would love, honestly, if I had the time and the money, I would love to redo them all. I would love to redo Shuna Sassy again, not in a convention time frame, because there were a lot of pieces that I wanted to do for her that I didn't get a chance to incorporate into it. The character also has quills kind of all up and down her
Yep.
arms and on the backs of her arms. There's a lot more to her than what I did. I did a simplified version of it. So I would love to do Shuna Sassy again, and I would love to do it on that same model, Renee, if I could get her up here from Texas.
I love her. She's amazing.
She is great. I would love to do my own version of Peliquin. There's just so many great characters in that film, and it's still one of the top practical effects films in my book, even though it was made in 1991. But I know so much more can be done with the technology that we have now, the makeup technology, to make those characters even greater. We can do things in silicone that could only be done in foam rubber 30 years ago. So many different layers of color. Like, so much more can be added to those characters, and they can be, I don't want to say they can be improved because they were perfect the way they are, but you can definitely put a contemporary, yeah. I would love to do them all if time and money weren't an issue.
All right, I got some more questions here. I got Cheryl asking, do you want to, or would you want to teach any classes for people that just want to come in and learn the basics?
I originally thought I did when I moved into this larger facility. I had thought, if it doesn't work out, if I can't get enough work between the theme parks to pay the bills, that maybe I would start doing some workshops in between. But then that never happened. I was just busy nonstop, which is great. But I'm to the point now where I've taught people in the past, like we had talked about. I've sort of taken people under my wing, and I've propelled them further. And right now, where I'm at in my life, I can't see myself doing any workshops or classes in person. That's not to say I might not be interested in doing something, making instructional videos on my own and putting them out there. Yeah, that is something I've thought about, just sort of like doing videos or doing like Patreon type tiers, where people could learn how to do a life cast, sculpt a makeup, make a mold, step to step to step, but just not do it in a personal workshop environment. Just do pre-recorded videos and then put them out there for people to,
they can purchase on their own and
to
then
pay
you can
for.
Go ahead and do. See, I like that idea. That's a great idea too, because then you could crank them out at your own pace. And you don't have to worry about keeping somebody in a small space or a large space for a certain amount of time. You can actually kind of take your time and go over them, the way that you would want to. So I love that idea. I'm for it. Do it.
Okay, I'll get right on it.
You got space. Do it. I've got. Cheryl's asking if you would consider doing a class at Spooky. I did not put her up to that. I'm just putting that out there right now.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, you guys usually only do the classes in the October Spooky, right? The larger of the shows.
Normally we do them for the October show. We don't. There's no room in the spring show because it's at a smaller venue. So for that show, we just do the makeup table, and usually we'll do like a clown walk or a zombie walk. It's been the clown walk the past few years, but October is usually when we end up doing the classes and stuff.
Right. I know this October you're going back to Tampa.
Yes. But we will be back in Orlando the following October.
The following October. So I would say not this October, just because the logistics of going to Tampa are tough, because it's not just bringing myself, it's bringing a truck and moving equipment and having people to move. It is a lot. It's a lot. So I would rule it out for this October, but maybe next October. If it's just right down the road, it's definitely more feasible.
Okay. I'm making a note, by the way.
Again, something you're going to hold me to
Oh,
next year.
It's happening.
Yeah.
As long as you're in Florida and you got some time, I'm gonna bug you a little bit. Nah. You've done some great demos, like we saw at the Female Darkness. You've done her at Spooky. You did the Shuna Sassy at Spooky, where people were able to come in and just kind of sit down and watch you apply the makeups to the models, which I love. JD and I love being able to bring that to people, to where they can come in and hang out and kind of watch someone that's amazing at the craft kind of do his thing. And you chit chat too while you're doing it, so it's not like it's awkwardly silent. I've noticed. So you do engage with the audience as they're watching you apply these extremely amazing makeups.
Yeah, my wife Noli would tell you, and Lindsay would tell you, and probably a couple of other people, that when I'm in that element of doing what I enjoy and what I know I'm good at, doing those makeups or doing something, then I'm very chatty. There's like an at-home Tony, and then there's a convention Tony. And when you get me at a booth at a convention or doing a makeup demo, then it's just like night and day the type of person I am, because
You come to life.
it's something that I'm confident in, and I have this knowledge and this information that I want to impart, and I do want to make it entertaining too, because sitting there and watching somebody apply makeup for 2 hours gets boring after a while. So, I always tell them that they can come, they can go. It's sort of like an open door policy. If they don't want to sit there and watch the entire thing for 2 hours, come look at a little bit of it, leave, go walk the floor, come back 30 minutes later, kind of see where it's at, and try to make it entertaining.
Oh, it definitely is. And even when you do it, like outside of doing the classes stuff, I know you've gotten a booth a couple of times at Spooky, and you've done makeup at the booth. And it's always fun to watch people walk by and kind of stop for a second and look and watch what you're doing, just to kind of take that in. And I know you had built the set and everything to showcase that. And I think that was it last year or the year before that you had Noli, and that you did that giant gnarly piece of her head missing.
Yeah, that was last March,
was
not this past March. Yeah, March 2019. Yeah.
That piece was
whenever that Spooky was, March or April. Thank you.
I think it was a March show. It's right. It was really early.
Yeah.
Is what it was. But yeah, that was awesome. And your wife is amazing. I love her. I miss her face. You have to give her a hug and a kiss from me.
I will.
I know she's busy. All right, got a couple people. Again, more of how amazing you are. All right, listen.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Stop it. No, I'm just kidding.
You're gonna give me an ego.
Build that ego up, boys and girls. No. Tell the man. That's right. You did Cheryl's makeup, and when we had the December show with Spooky, when they did that makeup for Matthew, you did her evil elf makeup when Jared had his giant Krampus costume.
Yeah, it was just sort of like a airbrush and kind of hand painted deal. It was a quick.
It was good.
I forgot about that. Yeah, thank you.
It was fun. It got some really good reactions from people.
Good.
That's for sure. Awesome. All right, has anybody got any more questions for Tony? Any other comments or ego stroking?
Not too much more ego stroking. I can only handle so much.
You can never have enough. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap this up then. It's after 9. I know.
Oh wow.
Get up at the crack of dawn, and I kind of try not to. I got Ashton in here saying that she did some of his makeups. Cheryl said it was quick and easy, but she loved it.
Good. I'm glad.
Everybody loves it. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you before I let you run away. I know you and I had kind of talked about this a little bit. Are you going to be doing a Meg Mucklebones?
I mean, never say never. It's definitely something I would love to do. The whole character was never envisioned. I forget the artist who did the original concept art for the character. Henry Alvarez, maybe.
I don't remember.
That could be wrong, but it was always envisioned as an incomplete character because she rises up out of the water. So if I were to do a Meg Mucklebones, it would have to be something that's capable of walking around a convention. So I would have to do a version of her up here that people are familiar with from the film, but then sort of like make it my own thing from the torso down, because you never see it in the film. You were never meant to see it in the
Right.
film. So
It would just be your own creation from that
right.
bottom part down, which I think would be fantastic.
It's possible.
I got Matt asking what's next for the Fantasy Friends.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, after I finish gluing all the black pieces on this guy, I'm not quite sure. I had taken a stab at doing like an orc, but I didn't like where it was going, so I kind of trashed it because it was leaning more a little too Weta Lord of the Rings type style, and everything that I've done up to this point has been very influenced by Brian Froud and the stuff that he did on specifically Labyrinth, but Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, and all of his artwork, all of his pencil and his watercolor artwork, like his fairy books and his goblins books and things like that. So everything that I've been sculpting up to this point has been very Froud based, and when I started sculpting the orc, I realized this is too Lord of the Rings. It doesn't fit in that aesthetic. So I'm not too sure. I would like to do like another goblin. Like I'm trying to balance it out between, in my mind, if these guys are like good guys or bad guys, you know. And I've got like two baddies over here, my witch and my fire demon, and then I have like my very wise, benign tree character over here who, like, you want to just go to the forest and get good advice from him. So I feel like I need to do another good guy at this point first, because
isn't she a good guy?
I do have the fairy. I don't know if Lisa's still watching. She had said I should write a story that incorporates all these characters or something like that. But I don't know. I have to kind of scour more Brian Froud artwork, and I don't want to specifically steal anything from him, but I want to find inspiration in the right type of character.
Got a couple of people suggesting doing maybe a troll or a fawn type character.
Ooh, fawn would be fun. Yeah.
Fawn would be cool.
Yeah. Fawn would be fun. Then I could do more flocking like I did on the fairy. Where it's got like all that light fur.
I love your fairy.
Thank you.
She's so pretty. And I'm glad you finally got the wings you wanted on her, because I know you did quite a few runs of those wings.
Yeah, 3 or 4 attempts to kind of get the look that I wanted. I had never done any like very like delicate, translucent, iridescent fairy wing type things before, and I know there are costumers out there who can whip them out in an afternoon.
Oh, I know.
And I was actually started speaking to a couple of people on Instagram who make and sell fairy wings, and sort of picking their brains as to the best way to go about it. And it's good. I found a couple of people who were very forthcoming with information, and then there's a couple of people who always think that you're going to steal their idea and then go ahead and sell your own version of it. But you know, every once in a while you find the right person
that's willing to share that
forthcoming
knowledge.
With information. Yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah. And I got Lisa chiming in. She's still here. She says, yes, you do need to write that story. And I agree with her. You do. I think that would be an awesome read, especially with all these, you know, your creations that are coming to life. Do it.
Yeah. I just need a place for them all once they're all done too. You know, they can't live in the shop forever, so I need a venue for them all. So if anybody knows any good art galleries in town that might want to do a showing of it, think on that.
I'm gonna, because I know some people. I'll ask around and see if anybody's got anywhere.
Because I would love for them to be seen face to face by the public rather than just like pictures on social media.
Right, and I mean, I've seen them face to face, and they're, oh my god, the pictures do them wonderfully, but face to face, it's a whole other thing of beauty with them. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, it would be nice for people to meet and greet them in public.
You need to give them little voice boxes where you can just like chime in at random.
We can do it. We have that technology.
Matt suggested maybe a coffee shop of horrors.
Oh yeah, do they have that kind of space?
Actually, yes.
Yeah. I believe. Well, it's something we'll have to talk about. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
You'll have to hit
on the aside. Yeah.
Hit Tony up there separately, Matt, and you guys can figure that out, because I know they just opened their second shop, Jonesy's Escape, which is out in, I always say it wrong, Tavares. It's a little bit away from Mount Verde, but it's larger, and they've got a lot of space, and they do like karaoke and stuff out there at nights too. So the new shop's really cool. So they definitely would probably have some room. So yeah, Matt, hit Tony up separately, and you guys can figure things out.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be awesome.
They have my Gur. Yeah.
Yes.
They've got my Gur statue. I don't know which shop it's in, but they've got. Well, it's their Gur now.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that. They've got your
Yeah.
and I have your
For
Kandarian
anybody who
dagger.
doesn't know. Oh, you have the Kandarian dagger from Evil Dead the musical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is lovely. It's a great addition to my collection. I'm figuring out displaying for all of my Evil Dead crap because I have a lot of it.
Good.
So yeah, all right, Matt's gonna hit you up. So all right, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna end this bad boy. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with me and everybody out there in Facebook land tonight. I appreciate you sharing your creations with us and your knowledge with us and just being an awesome down-to-earth dude and chatting. And if you guys are not doing so, follow Tony, Anatomy Effects, on the Instagram. Look for his Facebook page, which I'm going to beat him up to post more on.
Sure.
He does a lot on his personal
Oh,
page.
the Anatomy Effects. Yeah, it's all on my personal page at this point. Yeah.
So yeah, just maybe we can get him to get going on the actual Facebook page for Anatomy Effects, so that those of you that are not friends with Tony on Facebook, you can still see some of the amazing stuff that he's creating.
Awesome.
So yeah. So thank you. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you. This was great.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, there's tons to talk about.
Oh yes, this is only the beginning.
We can do a part 2.
Yes, we will have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
All right, boys and girls, thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time, keep it spooky.